Hello there, I'm Nathalia Melo, your unfiltered fit BFF, mom of two turned CEO of a fitness empire. Someone who understands the struggles of trying to stay fit, sane, and sexy, all while juggling work, life, and motherhood. And this is the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast. Follow along wherever you're listening and join me weekly as I help busy working moms just like you simplify their fitness journey so they can lose weight, regain their confidence, and feel sexy AF. It's time to stop living in the what ifs and hiding from the cameras. It's time to regain control over your body, feel sexy naked, and wear a bikini confidently. People already see you as a super confident woman, but it's time for you to feel the same way too. Let's go. Hello there, fam. Welcome to another episode of the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast. I'm Nathalia Melo, your host, and I'm going to start today's episode asking you a question. How many opportunities do you think you have missed because you let fear get in the way? How many friendships, relationships do you think you might have missed out on because of fear? How many happy memories do you think you might have missed out on because of fear? And the reason I ask is because sometimes I catch myself thinking about where would I be now had I not decided that I was going to move to the US when I was 20 years old with $350 to my name. If I had had the fear, a paralyzing fear, I must say, because I was scared. I had fear, but I did it anyway. Where would I be now? Would I be married with my husband? Would I have the life that I have now? Would I have my kids? I love my life, man. And that's why I catch myself thinking all the time. I'm like, what would have happened just out of curiosity if I had let fear get the best of me? What would have happened if whenever I met my husband, which I have an episode on this, by the way, I think is episode 2. What would have happened if whenever my husband asked me to move to Northern Ireland, which that's where he lived, where he was from, and I lived in Florida when we were dating, we did long distance for 2.5 years. What if I had listened to everybody's fears? Everybody was like, oh my God, are you leaving your stuff in a storage unit? I'm like, no, I'm going. Was I scared? Oh, hell yeah, I was. Absolutely. Fear was my first name. But I did it scared anyway. And I can easily say that I would not have this incredible life that I have today if you weren't for that decision. And I feel like fitness is a reflection of life more than we like to think. Anybody that you ask that goes to the gym and trains, the confidence that you build whenever you're able to lift heavy or stay consistent with your workouts, or one day you go and you're not able to lift X amount and then you go next time and you are, that confidence starts to show up in other areas of your life. So fitness I like to say that is like the training wheel of life, because, whenever you're doing stuff in the gym, it's a more controlled environment. In the world, it's not so controlled. But if you learn to build that resilience, that comfort with your body in the gym, outside the gym, it starts to get bigger and better. That's why I make so much analogies with, career, life, fitness goals, because I think that they're a mirror to each other. This story that I'm going to tell you is a very good example of overcoming fear and what is on the other side of it. I had this lady, new member of the Powerhouse Academy. I've already spoken with her. She's going to come in the podcast and do an interview because incredibly smart, has been doing her own thing with fitness for a long time. She's a doctor, so she's not an idiot. She's a very smart woman. She has her own business. She has children, very busy. And she had been doing the same thing for a long time. And it wasn't getting the results. She knew that what she was doing wasn't working. So she signed up for the Powerhouse Academy after we had a very long conversation. And I was very honest with her that things would have to change. This was on April 10th. Then on April 11th, she sends an email asking to pause everything. And I was trying to understand because we had a great conversation and she acknowledged that she knew that change needed to happen. And her reply was that she didn't have the bandwidth to figure things out and that she was just going to stick with her current routine that she already knew that didn't work. So I kept on talking to her back and forth because I truly wanted to understand. I knew she needed change. I was more than happy to pause it until she felt like, quote unquote, life got easier. But I knew that that wasn't about life getting easier or less busy. There was something else. And the more I talked with her, the more I realized that there was fear. It was fear. It was fear of change, fear of failure, fear of the unknown. And we worked with her. We met her where she was at. And then on April 25th, remember, joined on April 10th, April 11th, she asked to pause. On April 25th, just 14 days later, she sends a message in our chat. Nathalia, last night your words just kept sounding in my brain. What if there is another way? At the moment, I thought that was impossible. But my reality this week is proving your words to be true. And I feel so hopeful. 14 days. That's all it took for her to start seeing and letting fear ease. I'm pretty sure she's still scared now, but is starting to see that there is something on the other side. There is something simpler, better. And then about a month into the program, she sends me another message and she says, I haven't had any urge to binge and my daydreaming thoughts about food are practically gone. It has been the absolute best, breaking so many misconceptions I have had for years. I am truly, truly enjoying this. I am beyond thankful, really. I never thought that I could achieve my goals eating carbs at every meal every day. I feel so good. I truly feel amazing, like another person. It's been a huge identity shift. I truly believe I'm a fitness person who takes amazing care of herself. You guys, this was on May 11th. This that I just read to you. On April 11th, she was asking to pause the program. And I'm telling you this story just to show how much fear of change can hold people back. And today I'm going to talk about how fear hinders fitness and life, the truth around the fear of change and why it happens and what to do to overcome it. So I have 3 here. I'm sure there are more, but I wanted to condense. So here are 3 main reasons that I have witnessed as a coach that keep people stuck in their fitness journey, which is the fear of the unknown. And the truth is that a lot of people in fitness, especially the more type A folks that are high achievers, they like to have control. But whenever you go into unknown territory, you have everything but control. And there is nothing wrong with not liking to lose control. That is ultimately, a survival mechanism for humans to not like the unknown, to not want to be in an environment that they don't have control over anything. If we look even for an evolutionary standpoint, you have a cave, it's dark, it's unknown. What is the first thing that's come to your mind? The fuck, I'm not going to go there because it's unknown. You don't know what is in there. It can be a bear, but it can be a suitcase of gold. We don't know. So as a survival mechanism, it makes sense. We want to keep control. And that fear of the unknown encourages us to stick to what we know. But at what point that fear of the unknown keeps us stuck just following the status quo? At what point we acknowledge that the fear exists, that yes, it is something that is unknown, but you have to ask yourself, is the known, is where you are right now making you happy? Because if where you are right now is not making you happy, you are going to have to go somewhere in order to change, because ultimately the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So if what you know is something that makes you unhappy, the only way to find something that is going to make you happy in your fitness journey, whatever that looks like. You want to lose fat? Great. You want to build muscle? Great. You want to gain weight? Great. Whatever that is for you. But whatever it is that is going to make you happy, is going to be different than the thing that you know that is making you unhappy. It's just logic. And I know that whenever I say like this, you're like, yeah, sure. But I even do this. I try to be very cognizant of it, like whenever I'm doing and not wanting to go into unknown, but I do it. I'm human. So understand and be honest with yourself to ask where I am right now. Objectively, look at where you are right now. Is that making you happy? If the answer is no, something has to change. And if something has to change, it's going to be unknown because you already know what's making you unhappy. That's it. This is a conversation you're going to have with yourself. So, first, fear of the unknown. Second, and this is huge, which is the fear of failure. Most people are ego driven. We want to be the best. But the only way you're going to appear to be the best is if you don't, quote unquote, fail. But what a lot of people fail to understand is that in order for you to truly become the best, there are going to be a lot of failures along the way. A lot of successful people sometimes don't talk about the failures, but they exist. I'm pretty sure most people that we know who are incredibly successful in fitness, in life, in business, in finances, they have had their fair share of failures. But we're ego-driven. We don't want our self-esteem to be hurt because the moment that you fail, you start to tell yourself that you are a failure. You start to identify, like it becomes almost your identity. I am a failure. And here's the thing that I want you to ask yourself. Are you really? Does everything else in your life show that you are a failure? Because I will speak with women, for example, the lady that I was mentioning, incredibly accomplished. A doctor, has her own business. Her kids are incredible. Great marriage. Beautiful. Is she a failure? To any sane person's standard, no. But the ego kind of gets in the way. And because there is that perception of, oh, I'm perceived as X, Y, and Z, then I cannot fail, which is not true. And trust me, again, this is me as being as vulnerable as possible. Like soon after I retired from competing, I had internal conversation, like, am I walking away from competing because of how I feel? Or is it because I have fear of failing, of getting on the stage after being the best in the world at what I do and then becoming last? Am I afraid of what people are going to say? And after a lot of back and forth conversation with myself, I was able to very clearly put down in paper that I was walking away because it was no longer making me happy. Period. The end. I gave two shits at what people had to say. But there was a transitional period in the first 6 months to a year that I kept on asking myself, like, am I not going back because it truly doesn't make me happy? Or is it because I'm afraid of like failing? And is it going to impact my identity, my self-esteem? And listen, there are plenty of folks out there that are going to be like, oh my God, I don't give a shit about what people say. Lies. I'm not saying that we're all going to give a shit about what everybody says. If I were to care 24/7 about what people say, I'll be driving myself crazy because my Instagram is the Wild West sometimes. But for the people that care about me, my husband, my kids, yeah, I give a shit about what they say. So if I start something and I fail, I am going to give a shit about their opinion. It just is. But you have to realize that failure is part of the process and change the mindset on how we look at failure other than defeat. Maybe that is just, you learn a way that something doesn't work. There is a quote like that, actually. I can't remember the exact quote. It's a chance to learn. It's a chance to become the person that you need to be to accomplish the goal that you have. Failure is not defeat. It really is an opportunity that you have to develop the skill sets that you need to become the person that you need to become to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. Example of that is lotto winners. The number of lottery winners that lose their money shortly after winning, staggering. The data says that nearly 1/3 of lottery winners eventually go bankrupt within 3 to 5 years. Going to read that again. Nearly 1/3 of lottery winners eventually go bankrupt within 3 to 5 years. What the hell does it have to do with failure? I'm going to tell you right now. Failure is shaping your skill set in resilience to accomplish the goal and keep the goal. That's why fads and short-term stuff don't work, because they are just focusing on the outcome and not focusing on the failures that are necessary along the way to build the person that you need to be to accomplish the goal that you have. Lottery winners, they didn't work for the money. They didn't have to develop the skill set that somebody that has that kind of money has to be able to keep it. So they lost it. So the more you start to look at failure as an opportunity to shape yourself, to become the person that you need to become to accomplish the goal that you have, the more you're going to see failure actually as a school. It's a book. It really is a book. But it is one of the three main reasons as to why people don't accomplish their goals, most specifically their fitness goals. With the lady that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I'm pretty sure that she feared failure. She's a high achiever. Everybody around her has seen her succeed at all things in life. Do you think that she's not scared shitless of telling everybody that she joined a program that is not cheap and that she failed? Shit, that sounds as scary as hell. But here we are, a month later, she's crushing it. And then the third one is negative bias. And I actually found a study here that says there is ample evidence for an asymmetry in the way that adults process and use positive versus negative information. Adults are far more attentive to and much more influenced in most psychological domains by negative than by positive information. And I've put the link to the study in the show notes. This is a direct quote from the study. And it's true, like even whenever we look as a society, let's not go far. Turn on the TV. They ain't talking about puppies. They're not talking about the cute cat meme. Maybe they'll talk a little bit, like they will sprinkle here and there, but 90% of it, it's all negative bullshit. Because that's what is going to keep people's attention. Because we do have a negative bias and catastrophic thinking. Oh my God, I'm going to start this program and then, I'm going to start working on my fitness. And then what if it doesn't work? And then what if everybody makes fun of me? And there's so many what ifs that they don't even begin. But again, this is a question that I like to ask anybody. Somebody that I talk to about joining my program. Sometimes I ask myself. And it kind of goes back to a similar question that I asked on the first point, the fear of the unknown. What is the worst thing that can happen? So imagine that you start going to the gym or you invest in a program. It doesn't work. Okay, absolute worst. So let's take our negative bias and catastrophic thinking all the way to the worst case scenario. What is the worst thing that can happen? Absolute worst. Absolute worst. You waste money, or it has a negative impact on your health. I have a lot to say about the health piece because this is like going on a bit of a tangent here. I do believe that there are a lot of coaches out there. They're doing shady business. So it is a reality. Okay. But let's start with the understanding that this is something that it's not going to negatively impact your health. It is done in a healthy manner. It is going to be done in a responsible manner with the support of true experts. What is the worst that can happen? This is referring to, for example, lifestyle, like a lifestyle with fitness. The same questions can be asked. Like, for example, whenever I talk with someone that talks to me that they want to start competing, cool. What is the worst that can happen? Well, it can really have a very negative impact on my health, and I might not be able to have kids because of all the intense everything that I'm going to do that. Cool. That's the worst that can happen. Can you live with that? Because if the answer is yes, knock yourself out, girl. But if the answer is no, then we have to reevaluate the choices. Same thing with something that is more moderate, it's more sustainable, it's healthy. Okay, so what is the worst that can happen? It's not going to impact your health. You might waste money. That can be a possibility. How many times have you gone to a bad restaurant that you paid a whole bunch of money and it just wasn't good? And I'm not saying that that is going to be the case. What I'm saying is that even whenever we use our most catastrophic thinking, the worst case scenario in most cases, it's still not as bad as our mind makes us believe when we are in the moment and not thinking clearly. Example, the lady that was trying to cancel the day after she joined. What's the worst that can happen? She wasted money. That's the absolute worst that could happen. She wasted money. But what is the best that can happen? Her life has changed. And if you're already putting money towards something that is not working, it's funny because I spoke with a lady a while back. She actually did not join the program. And she is spending about close to $1,000 a month on a personal trainer that she's been working with between 6 months and a year. And nothing has changed. Again, I saw pictures, but I'm getting just her side of the story. But she won't change because she has fear of failing doing something different. And then I was like, cool. Do you think you're not failing now? She's like, no. And I'm like, okay. So you're not failing, but you're not winning, but you're not changing because you fear failure. Do you see how that is crazy whenever we think about it? Oftentimes we're willing to stay stuck. There is actually a theory for that, which is the sunk cost fallacy, which is, a cognitive bias that makes you feel as if you should continue pouring money, time, or effort into a situation since you've already kind of like sunk or gave so much to it. And then you get blinded by seeing that in itself a failure. But the fear of the unknown, the fear of change, the fear of loss of control makes you think that you're going to fail without having the clarity to see that what you're doing already is a failure in itself because it's not working. And there are many reasons why people, have this negative bias and this catastrophic thinking. A lot of times it is because of culture. Some cultures are more negative than others. Some cultures don't accept failure as well. But it is important to understand that, as my man Winston Churchill would say, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. How many opportunities have you been missing out on because you always go to the worst case scenario without even clarity on what the worst case scenario is? How many opportunities are you missing out because you fear failing when what you're doing already is a failure? If you're unhappy with where you are, wouldn't that be a failure? Where would you be and how much more accomplished and confident would you feel if you let go of that, or at least accepted that the fear of the unknown exists, because it is a survival mechanism, but do it even scared. Because the same way that it can be something terrible on the other side, going back to that negative bias, what if there is something amazing? You don't know. I found an article that talks about the big signs of fear of change to stay alert and to stay aware of, because these can start to have a significant impact on your quality of life, on your fitness, on your relationships. And there are 5 of them. First one is rumination. Whenever a person cannot stop a change from occurring, and fear will show up in the form of like overthinking. And then you start to ruminate about everything. Another one is panic. So whenever people feel dread or panic at the idea of changing their usual routines, and that's something that I see a lot. It's interesting because the panic with the dread of changing routines and things like that, it's people's perceived idea of, quote, it's working. Even though they have acknowledged that what they're doing is not working, they're so panicked, like dreading change so much, that they start to panic and nothing happens. Then we have indecision. And that's when people become overwhelmed over even minor changes. I see that a lot. And indecision, like piss or get out of the pot. That's a motto that I kind of have always lived by. The overthinking idea, it drives me crazy. Because again, worst can happen. Shit don't work. Go back to square one, start again. We only have one life, man. Just one life. Another sign of fear of change is dismissiveness, which is ultimately not being coachable. That's whenever you reflexively dismiss new ideas or opportunities, even when there is little risk. The most successful people in the world, they're coachable. And this dismissiveness of new ideas and opportunities and strategies, plans, that's not how successful people operate. But oftentimes people hide behind oh, but it's worked before. But has it though? Or is it the fear of change speaking? And then over avoidance. Like this one is rampant. Oh, I'm busy. Oh, I cannot start right now. It's going to be on Monday. It's not about the Monday. It's not about being busy. Sometimes it might be, but I have seen, just today I did an interview with a member, Susan. She's busy, like busy. She lost her husband when her youngest one was 4 months old. And she had two other kids. So she had to deal with grief, 3 very young children. Then she was the caretaker for her mother-in-law. She couldn't have like 25 minutes aside. She could keep on pushing aside and being like, oh, I'm busy. She truly was busy. But she knew that something had to change. And feeling how she was feeling at the time was much more overwhelming than the feeling of the importance of change. So she decided on change. But I see this constantly. Oh, I have to fix my car. I don't have the means right now. And I'm paying for a trip to Bora Bora. Okay, hold on a second. So you're telling me that you have money to go to Bora Bora and you don't have money to take care of your body? Or is it fear speaking? Well, I have to fix my house. Hold on a second. So the house that you're going to live, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years, is more important than the house, aka your body, that you're going to live for at least 70 plus years based on the life expectancy in this country. So you need to be honest with yourself. Are you avoiding because truly what you have in front of you is truly a problem, or is it an avoidance because of fear? You fear change. And it's not for me to decide. And that's one big thing that I say when I get on a call with somebody. My purpose is not to convince anybody about anything, but we need to have the difficult conversations about the need for change. Because as a coach, what I tell all our ladies is that I am your coach. I'm not your babysitter. I'm not your mom. I'm your coach. I can be your friend, but before being your friend, I'm going to be your coach. And I'm going to call a spade a spade. And if you're constantly staying stuck because of your negative bias, your fear of failure, your fear of the unknown, then there is nothing that anybody can do until you decide that where you are is not where you want to be. And if where you are is not where you want to be, then guess what's going to happen? Something's going to have to change, and it's for you to decide. Especially now as we are kind of entering summer at the time this recording goes live. How much has changed since last summer? Has it been a positive change or has it been a negative change? If it has been a positive change, what happened? And if it has been a negative change, what happened? Is the negative change due to inaction? Because change is going to happen. Whether we want it or not, time is passing. We cannot control the uncontrollable. So change is going to exist. And we can make the choice to create a change that is positively going to impact our lives, or we can make the choice to let change just happen. But then we don't know what the outcome is. So if this summer you're looking at your life, you're looking at yourself, you're looking at the promises that you made to yourself in January, and you're not where you'd like to be, you need to ask yourself why. Because if the answer is no, something has to change. And the over-avoidance to address hasn't fixed the problem, has it? The rumination and the overthinking hasn't fixed the problem, has it? So what needs to happen? I'm not going to tell you what needs to happen. You need to decide what it is that needs to happen. It's not going to be with your husband telling you to do something, because if it is with a whole bunch of people telling you that you need to do something, that those changes are probably not going to stick. It needs to come from within. And with that being said, my friends, I'm going to leave with a question. If we could go back in time to the beginning of the year, January, especially right now, we're right in the middle of the year. What has changed from January to now? Answer that to yourself. Are you where you want to be? Now, you cannot control the past, but you can control what happens moving forward. So fast forward to 6 months. That takes us around the holiday season, December. What needs to happen for you to be where you want to be in 6 months' time? Does anything need to change? Are you doing something to change? Or are you just going to, yet again, live in a perpetual state of overthinking and rumination and letting life happen to you and not for you? Thanks for listening, guys. I will see you next week. Adios. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. But let me ask you, what was your aha moment in today's episode? I would love to know. You can leave me a comment or voice message at the link in the show description. You can also follow me on Instagram and let me know what topics you want to hear more about or who I should have on the show. As for today, this is it for today, guys. I'll see you back next week for another episode of the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast.